The Enterprise is in the middle of the Volterra Nebula, a stellar nursery. Professor Galen's star pupil is now master of the stars, and Picard missed the night blessing of the Yashel question on his final exam. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 6, Episode 20, The Chase. Story by Ronald D. Moore and Joe Menosky. Teleplay by Joe Menosky. Directed by... Wait a minute, did I get that right? Jonathan Frakes.
Jonathan Frakes, yeah.
All right, this was April 24th, 1993. Where were you? And guess what, everybody? We've got a very special guest. There's some serious biology going on in this episode. Thank goodness. We've got a professor of biology at Duke University. His name is Dr. Mohamed Noor. He's also a science consultant for the Star Trek franchise, which you may have heard of. What's up, Mohamed?
Hey, always a pleasure to be back on The Seventh Rule.
Man, it's so good to have you, pal.
guys.
Our very own Professor Galen.
Yeah, totally. Everybody,
I won't be as snotty as he was with Picard, though. Man, he was hard.
Yeah,
No.
he
Like,
was.
dang, guy, take it back a notch.
Like, the guy's an adult already. Like he's made a success of himself. You're on his ship right now, begging for his help. There's got to be
kind of
something good about it.
apologized. He kind of...
Kind of at the very tail end. Like, I'm about to die. I'll apologize now for a second. I'm dead.
Well,
Yeah.
everybody, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications if you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate that. And visit us at patreon.com/the7th-rule. That's patreon.com/the7th-rule to support the show. All right, Mohamed, what the heck did we just watch?
Oh my gosh. There's so much to unpack here. Do you want to start? Do we just do the launch in?
Well, yeah, because we got a general idea of what we saw. I guess
But you've
we're
got
talking about some
information.
kind of.
Yeah. Let's start with the biggest concepts, and then we can go back to some of the
Yeah.
scientific stuff they said, which doesn't actually work as well.
Oh, no.
So that's scary. I mean, actually, overall, the concept here is pretty good. So this relates back to a real-world scientific concept called panspermia, which does not mean sperm is everywhere. It does not mean that. Panspermia
Sounds like it, though.
I know, that'd be cool. But
Sounds like the San Antonio
Pan-
basketball team.
Oh, there you go.
Panspermia.
Panspermia. P-A-N and then sperm and then I-A.
Okay.
So that's a real-world concept. It's a real concept. And the idea behind that is that maybe life on Earth was seeded from outer space, and that seeding happened on other worlds. So essentially, something is floating around in space, and bits are landing on Earth and other places, hence the panspermia aspect, and then seeding life there. There's a whole bunch of different variants of this idea. I mean, the simplest version would be something that lands on Earth is like a bacteria. So, like, the first couple of E. coli or something like that, and they divide, and then eventually, like 4 billion years later, we have some, stuff that looks like us and trees and mushrooms and everything like that. That's the simplest idea.
Can I just ask you, just already, this is why you're so great, is because the way you explain things already brings up so many other questions. And I know I'm probably, jumping the horse, or I think there's some kind of saying for this that I can't think of. But that being said, even if that were a real thing, and I'd heard of it too, that being said, if that were a real thing and a bacteria or a thing or something was happening, things wouldn't evolve into looking the same over.
Oh yeah, so you're already hitting the
right?
punchline,
Right? I mean, they would. There's
You're hitting the punchline.
infinite. I mean, there's also
let's
environment. Sorry. Go ahead.
Let's come back to that. You're 100% correct, and that's going to be one of the punchlines. But let's talk about what panspermia is a little bit more first. But yes,
Okay.
you're jumping straight to the big.
Yeah.
punchline.
Sorry, I shouldn't have. Please continue.
No, it's all good. You're 100% correct. So, I mean, there's other variants of panspermia called things like pseudo-panspermia. So one idea there is that rather than like a bacteria landing on Earth, maybe there was like a missing chemical or something like maybe some like amino acid or something, which, I mean, is possible. There are extraterrestrially formed amino acids. Maybe something landed and that helped spawn life, which actually would make the problem you're describing even more difficult. But yeah, so the idea behind this was it was an attempt to explain why there's so many humanoid aliens across the Star Trek universe. Like, why do we have, Klingons and Cardassians and Romulans in particular this thing? But it seems to be implying all life too, because you saw the weird, what was it? What was on the last planet?
Oh, it was lichen.
Yeah, it was a
Lichen on a
which I was like, okay, that's
seabed.
a very complicated thing. A lichen is a combination of like a fungus and an algae. I was like, okay, that's really intense. Anyway, saying that all the
When I think of lichen, I think of intensity, man.
yeah. Or it's not a simple organism. Like this is a
Right.
combination of a bunch of different organisms. So I was like, oh man, a
Right.
lichen. Okay, that's hardcore. But to your point, Ryan, you're exactly right. So I mean, this supposedly happened by the dough-faced people, which I guess we learned in Discovery that they were called the progenitors, and so that came back later.
Very
Oh,
good.
okay.
Yes.
Where they were. So this is a Discovery season 5. That was one of the big plots. So the progenitors. At the time, I think I used to always call them the dough-faced people because they kind of look dough-faced.
Oh, dough as in DOUGH.
Correct.
At first, I thought you meant DOE. I was like,
No, not like a deer. No.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Don't look at it.
The dough face.
The dough face, yeah. No, exactly. DOUGH, basically. So, anyways, the idea there is that, again, these were all seeded 4 billion years ago, and they even use that number, which is actually accurate. It's about the start of life on Earth. This thing, give or take some, of course. Could that yield the same outcome? So you actually hit the nail on the head, Ryan. Even if you had exactly the same starting point, what people used to tell me, and I'll tell you the little problem, and I'll tell you the big problem. The little problem is what people often tell me in talks, which they say, but wouldn't the conditions have to have been exactly the same?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that probably would have to have been true, but honestly, that's the easier problem to solve.
Wow.
Oh,
Right.
why there's more problems?
Yeah, there's a much bigger problem because what it ignores is the role of random chance events. It's basically saying there's like a determinism 4 billion years
Mutation and stuff, yeah.
Everything is going to end up exactly the same. No, let's take there's a bunch of random things that have happened on Earth. Let's go just a little bit back. Let's go 65 million years ago.
Asteroid
Impact on Earth wipes out the dinosaurs. Did that happen on Kronos? Did that happen on Cardassia Prime?
Totally.
Did it happen on Romulus? All at the same time.
Right.
No way. There's no way that would have happened. And you can go even further. Let's go back 2 billion years rather than 60 million years. There was this incident where like one single cell thing kind of swallowed another one, and the inside one was providing energy to the big one. After many iterations of division, the smaller one became what we now call the mitochondrion.
Cool. I didn't know about that.
That's endosymbiosis. This idea that basically, like, it used to be a separate organism. It actually has its own mitochondria, has its own genome because it used to be its own little organism. That is what allowed multicellularity to happen, like here on Earth. It was a big facilitation for that. Did that happen again on Kronos, on Romulus, or Vulcan? I guess since Romulus and Vulcans are related, on Cardassia Prime, all these other places at the same time. No, I mean, there's so much about random chance events all the time that there's no way you could predict, like going that far out, that you get exactly, I mean, and admittedly, it's not exactly, but it's pretty darn close to exactly the same outcome. They're even interfertile, as you know. The other thing too related to that is that we would be more closely related to like a pine tree than we are to a Romulan, right? Because our common ancestor with Romulans is 4 billion years ago. Our common ancestor with a pine tree is much more recent than that. It's like 2 billion years ago, something like that. And yet we can breed with Romulans or with Klingons. Like what?
But we can't breed with a tree. I bet.
I haven't tried.
I heard.
You ever heard of a Woody?
Oh,
I'm gonna have a lot of editing
for
to do
Sirac.
this
I like it.
No, but so that's interesting. But let's say so. But what they are claiming is that this progenitor race, this original race, in order to preserve itself and flourish,
Legacy, yeah.
right, was able to find certain conditions in which this thing would thrive, right? I mean, so they didn't place these life forms. They didn't place these life forms. Ryan finally made me laugh with one of his text messages. He's calling them the progenitals.
I did not. That is not what I.
That's a good one. Finally. But,
Please.
But we're assuming that they found planets in which they felt like life would be able to flourish, and they seeded these planets with these organisms that eventually. So let me ask you.
Please.
They're not saying that they actually left a humanoid-like individual in that particular planet when they
Correct.
left it.
Correct.
They're saying they left a biological life form like
Correct.
a bacteria, a virus, or something to that effect.
Correct.
Is that what we're talking about?
Correct. Because I mean, otherwise we would have fossil evidence of like a humanoid from like 4 billion years
Right.
ago or something like that on Earth. Yeah. So,
Right.
but you're exactly
Okay.
right. It left some sort of life form that, and there was like the seed codes that directed their evolution, as they called it. That's what the progenitor lady was saying. The seed codes directed your evolution towards a form shaped like us. That's why our bodies look like yours and stuff like that. Like, okay, that's the determinism behind all this is very, very extreme. Now, what you could imagine a scenario, and I was trying to think, like, if there was a way to play this, you could imagine a scenario if, let's say, there was manipulation throughout that period, right? I think that's a massive stretch. I don't think that would fly. But if there was manipulation throughout that time, where let's say they were coming back and like they were selectively killing anything, like, oh no, we don't want you going in that direction.
Yeah,
let's
like scientists doing experiments, just kind of watching and coming back on. And by the way, I just want to add some context here. Mohamed, the thing that makes you the best guest on any show, besides your effervescent personality and intelligence and goodwill and all the other things, is the fact that everybody loves to nitpick the hell out of things. But what you are so good at is saying, how could this be possible?
That's always the goal.
How in universe, how could we? That's so much smarter. It's such a better and more productive and more intelligent way to go. So
yeah,
please continue because you're doing that right now.
It's more intellectually stimulating too, because I mean, anybody can throw stones.
Totally.
Come on, it's more intellectually stimulating. Okay, let's make it actually work instead of just like,
Totally.
But yeah, if you had some manipulation, then maybe the role of chance events isn't that important. So let's say maybe an asteroid killed off the dinosaurs here, but let's say they zapped the dinosaurs on Kronos or something like that from spaceships from above. I mean, I guess you could kind of try to force those events to happen, and select for exactly the outcome you want. And in universe, there's a little bit of that. Like you might remember in Voyager, there was something. There was an episode where like they were talking about the Chakotay's ancestors and some manipulation from aliens. Maybe they were associated with the progenitors. Maybe the progenitors were their progenitors.
So
please.
Maybe the Q continuum are those.
They
can those do caretakers.
Yeah,
right?
Once you insert Q, anything's possible, right?
Right, they could be the gardeners that take care of making sure those outcomes are relatively similar, even though you have variance and stuff.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, actually, inserting the Q thing is really good because then you might expect a little bit of variance, and that's why we see things that's why Cardassian doesn't look exactly like a Romulan. Maybe. Were you about to say something, Ryan? I forget.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, okay, then what's the point of this episode? And I think there are two. I think one is that they probably, over the course of several years, heard the same question. How come all aliens sound the same, but just with one thing on their head? And they all have, they're all 6 feet tall they all have 10 fingers and 10, they're all like 10, 10, and 1, and they have jaws and mouths and all this. And so maybe this was their way of trying to explain that in universe, the same way that the Han Solo movie tried to explain, going a measurement of time and calling it parsecs when we're like, no, that's distance. But then they explained it with some trick thing that they did.
I remember that, yeah.
Right? It's the attempt. It's a good attempt. So they're trying to explain things in you. Or like when they go back, Trials and Tribulations, and they're explaining why Klingons look different now and before, right? So they're doing that. I think this was
talk about it.
Exactly. I think this was their attempt at explaining that. And then the other one, obviously, the theme is meant as a wink to people that live on Earth, saying, "Hey, we're not all so different. We all come from the same place. We should all be more accepting. We're all come from the same genetic goo, and we've just arrived in different locations."
Totally. No, definitely on both those. It's interesting on the first one, they didn't have to because there already was a better explanation in the original series.
Remind us.
Oh,
yeah. And there's an episode called The Paradise Syndrome. And that episode, it's a little cringy in some respects. Like they show up at some planet They beam down, and Kirk gets zapped and loses his memory. But there's a bunch of like Native Americans on this planet, and since Kirk loses his memory, he like impregnates one and marries her.
Oh yeah, because that's not his usual behavior. That's
I lost my memory.
But in that same episode, there was this obelisk. And I remember Spock was translating some writing off the obelisk and said, oh, this was left by a super race known as the Preservers rather than the Progenitors. So kind of similar name. And it said what they would go around is they would go to different worlds in danger of extinction and then take populations and seed them elsewhere. So the idea was from that they came to Earth like in recent history, not like 4 billion years ago, but maybe like, a couple 100,000 years ago, or maybe tens of thousands of years ago, grabbed some Native Americans and plopped them down on this other planet. That actually works better because that would explain why we're interfertile with other species. And it would also explain why you look similar but not quite exactly the same. So if they came just much more recent ancestry instead of 4 billion years ago ancestry, and they came from Earth, so their life evolved here on Earth, that works fine.
Mm-hmm.
So if let's say they came rather than the Native Americans, let's say they came back earlier and they grabbed like Homo erectus, or something like some like pre-hominid that dropped it down. Maybe then they would have pointy ears. Could be. Maybe they'd have funny foreheads. Yeah, it's possible. Or they might look just like us, like Guinan.
Right.
The other issue I had was more about what would be recreated from resequencing this DNA combination. Like once you did that, as a matter of biology or science, what would be the result of that?
Good point.
And my thing is, you would create a life form, right? There would be a creation of a life form.
Yeah.
But what we saw was a projection of a recorded audio video. Like it was like
movie.
A holographic movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I was like, how does this add up? In how did the problem turn into a code for a projection of a hologram? That is where I had a problem. I wanted to see them actually create a life form that we saw kind of spawn and then develop and kind of had this really rapid pace evolution in front of us type of event.
Yeah.
Where you see like, oh, whoa, who are you? Like, where did you come from?
Yeah.
As opposed to the video. The video felt like a letdown because when the guy at the end, he's like, "That's all." I felt exactly like he did.
That was the funniest part of the whole episode. Like, that's all. If she was still alive, I would kill her.
Yeah, I was like, "You're supposed to create life. Like this is you've made the you've solved the Rubik's Cube, you've solved the puzzle, and you would have life. You would have the original life form, essentially blueprint."
Yeah.
And I would see more interest in seeing how that life form. This could, for example, be a 2-part episode where you get to see how that life is hibernated, cultivated inside of Beverly's, medical room and things of that nature. But I just felt like the video recording was like, are you serious? Like this advanced species and all of this, all to basically leave like a carved writing on the wall. It could have been just that. You know what I mean? Found a picture in a cave.
Yeah, it's not true. It's true.
Yeah. Could have done that too. You know what I'm saying? Without all the riddles and stuff.
I'm actually surprised that they could pack in a whole video, like, because I'm trying to think like how much information is in there. Which, I mean, yeah, we have a big genome, but I mean, I guess I don't really know what is it about the DNA that led to the video. Because I mean, the simplest explanation would be like those letters that we always use to abbreviate the molecules of DNA, the A, C, G, and T. But there's no way, because those have changed so much over the 4 billion years. There's no way.
How did they project it? I don't remember.
It was from a tricorder.
To the tricorder.
Right. So they had like the DNA sequencing or whatever. And
I don't think it was the sequence, because it doesn't work if it's the sequence, because again, the letters would have changed so much. Like the video would have been unintelligible.
Yeah.
So it has to be something about like the structure or something like that, I guess.
And they spoke English, but maybe that's universal translator knows how to translate 4 billion year old language that it's never.
Yeah. And talk about compatibility that works with the tricorder like billions of years later.
It's amazing.
I can't play my Betamax videos. I mean,
What's
Yeah.
that?
How long you been in there? That would be my question. Like, how long you been in there? Like,
yeah,
would you like a glass of water or something?
there's our
I did
8-track
a-
tapes trying to do that.
Yeah. Good thing Riker wasn't around.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so this had some holes, obviously, for the biology of it. But
It's a good idea,
I
though.
think it's a
Yeah.
good idea. I think Ryan nailed it when he said, it's about explaining why we see, just human-like figures all across the spectrum, and that kind of reality coming to the realization that, hey, we're all similar, we're all brothers, we're all come from the same origin. And again, the science of it doesn't differ too far from the um, theology that we have in our culture, kind of originating from Adam and Eve, for example, and that belief system. So there's still the same kind of thread. They've taken that concept and extrapolated with this other root human root person. But essentially, that's the same concept. It's the Adam and Eve story, and how we all come from the same origin. I did like it, but I also felt like there were a lot of disciplines that were crossed over. You had the archaeology aspect.
Yeah, right.
You have the astronomy aspect, right? You're going through a lot of a lot of disciplines of science that are being married together with the biology.
Yeah.
And where do you find, do you normally find somebody that has that kind of background, that has an advanced knowledge in both archaeology, space, biology? I mean, that's a very
You mean besides Muhammad?
broad.
I
Besides
don't have the space part.
Muhammad.
Yeah, I don't have the space part at all.
Yeah.
But it's pretty broad, though, right? I mean,
That's
as
very
far as
broad. Yeah.
of
I mean, there
disciplines,
is a field called evolutionary anthropology. So, I mean, we actually have a whole department of that here at Duke, for example. So, evolutionary anthropologists would have the mixture of essentially archaeology as well as human biology.
What
The
about
space part, that's a whole other
micropaleontology?
piece then.
What about micropaleontology? It sounded like
they
it
made
sounded
that up.
real.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I said they made that up, but maybe I've never heard of it.
I mean,
Maybe
paleontology, we know what it is, and micro.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay,
yeah,
that
no,
would,
maybe that's
but
a thing.
I've
not heard of it. But
I did a quick Google, and it turns out there is somebody that is good at all of those things. Bo Jackson, apparently.
Oh.
Bo Jackson.
yeah.
Bo knows all of those.
Bo knows.
Okay.
Sciences.
Bo knows.
Yeah. I thought it was a well-written episode. How did you feel about the episode overall, Mama?
This is
what
what
were
I
your
talk
feelings of
about. Yeah, this is what I talk about the most when I go to conventions.
Wow.
This particular episode, like by far, because immediately whenever I talk about humanoid aliens, everybody's like, "Well, that was explained in the chase." I'm like, "Well, it was
attempted."
Yeah, and to their credit, I mean, honestly, like, could I do something that good on a physics concept? Probably not. I mean, so it's a good attempt, and it is using real biology concepts here. It is using real concepts in terms of like origin of life on Earth. It just, there's just a little bit of a hole there.
So let me ask you, Mohammed, if you were consulting with Joe Manoski and Ron Moore at the time, and you were working on this episode, what would be your, kind of,
what would be the explanation?
What would be your explanation to them? How would you make adjustments to the script so that it sounded or it read more reasonably?
Absolutely. So I would go back to exactly what was in the original series episode, because I think that works perfectly. Just say that like something came to Earth around the time of, Homo erectus and took, those hominids and placed them in other worlds. And then it's like a much more recent common ancestry. Then it works fine. I mean, then you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's no barrier to that. I mean, the one challenge, of course, would be you just have to have an environment where they could live, and you have to have like food for them to eat and stuff like that. But I mean, it's all doable. You could do that, It would not be easy, but you could do that. But then there wouldn't be a hole at all. Actually, so the original series explanation works fine. I would just change the Native American thing and pull it a little further back than that.
Yeah, it was a good attempt.
The progenitors would be the ones that do that.
Yeah,
essentially,
and they did it like say not Not 4 billion years ago, but like much more recently. much more recently.
You know, I'm glad that they
rate of
made
chance
the
events are
attempt,
why they
though,
have the foreheads.
because when I first saw this back in the day, you know, I was like, okay, I get it. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing, is what Star Trek of the 90s did so well. I think that they really just focused on making good stories.
Yeah.
And that was the number one. And the number two is do your best to explain the science of it, even if you swing and miss. The main thing is they created a good story. So, you know,
it's so close.
It leaves
close.
you with the lesson. It leaves you with the story. You get the lesson. And yeah, like you say, they're so close. If you made that change, it still would have been the same story, just more accurate. And so, you know, they still hit it. You know, they still got a good hit, I think.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Another question for you, Mohamed.
Please.
If these, if we were to take your example and say that, you know, 2 million years ago, they took this hominid and placed them in different places in the galaxy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we had that million or so years to see evolution happen on those different places, which would result in the Romulans and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Would those individuals be able to mate with each other even after millions of years of evolution?
Well, it depends on how far back you go, but we do have evidence that is possible because it happened here on Earth.
Yes,
like if you remember, like Neanderthals and humans interbred. Like we actually,
but this was like what 100 or 200,000 years ago.
That's more recent than that. But I mean, it's possible pulling it back. Because remember, like with Klingons, they say they could.
I mean, I wouldn't call Riker a Neanderthal, but go ahead.
Well, you haven't seen Genesis anyway.
Oh yeah, it basically becomes kind of like that. Yeah. But also like Denisovans, there's a couple of other ancient hominids that were interbreeding. So I mean, there's a sweet spot in there. We can find that sweet spot and make it work with that sweet spot where you could still interbreed. So yeah.
Okay, so it is possible.
It is possible.
And then I know I'm getting on my nerd stuff, and I'm sorry I just keep bombarding questions, but I keep thinking of these stupid things. Would you ever have variation so far that a Klingon, for example, that has double the organs?
Yeah.
As a human, or would there be that much variation?
Probably not. I mean, there's some things which don't work. So, for example, like Vulcans, which I assume Romulans are like this too, have copper-based blood instead of iron-based blood. Realistically, that wouldn't have happened. Some insects have that, but insects are a lot further out than other hominids. So there are some specifics which still wouldn't work there. But just in terms of like a general overall appearance, it could work for the overall period, but some of the specifics, you're right, that it would not work. The other thing, which was a little bit funny, they were jumping back and forth between stuff about like protein configuration stuff. They were jumping back and forth on some of the stuff like, wait, what? It's not clear that it was wrong, but it was under-explained, or like, I'm not sure that's right, or that they just said it funny. Because the general thing is like, DNA makes RNA, RNA makes proteins, right? But they were kind of jumping all over between those things. Like, okay, I'm not sure. I can't say for sure that was wrong, but it sounds funny.
I'm not sure, but say it again. Say it again.
Yeah, exactly.
Slower.
Elaborate what you mean.
Yeah.
Also, it wasn't being said by like hardcore like molecular biologists. I mean, like if a doctor's talking about it, maybe they do kind of just slop it all together.
Sure. They simplify it for these guys. For these Neanderthals. But look, Mohamed, we're just about out of time with you, and we appreciate so much when you come and join us and make us feel smart. That's your biggest gift, is you make people feel smart. Just like people that watch Star Trek would feel smart watching it, you make us feel smart because you explain stuff and you're like, I think I almost understand what he's saying. Maybe I'm smart too.
You picked up the big issue like in that first minute. I was just explaining panspermia, like, well, wouldn't blah blah, like, that's the punchline.
And I think I'd heard of panspermia before. You don't forget a name like that. But anyway, Mohamed, thank you so much. You are truly the best, and we really appreciate you. And we're so lucky to call you a friend. We love you too, man. Thank you so much.
Love you.
Pleasure.
And I guess we'll see you soon. Everybody,
look forward to it. Always
remember around
the 7th rule.
Yeah.
Is that it? Oh shoot, we both have To the Journey paraphernalia merchandise. That's cool. You got the To the Journey. That's the Voyager documentary. Everybody, To the Journey. Sirach's got the cool Janeway coffee mug, and I've got the To the Journey shirt. All right. Here we go.
I
Both of
love
them.
this coffee mug. It's so, I don't know why I like it so much.
It's cool. It's Janeway's
it's
coffee
re-
mug. And both of these items
so
of
ergonomical.
merchandise are hot. All
I
right.
also feel like a weapon.
Really? Here are the trivioids of the week, everybody. Mohammed is really cool. The Enterprise is in the
Yeah.
middle of the Volterra Nebula, a stellar nursery. Professor Galen's star pupil is now master of the stars. Captain Picard never thought he would see a Kurlan Neskos. I don't remember what that word was. It's something like that. Micropaleontology is the study of fossil records on the microscopic level. Picard missed the night blessing of the Yashel question on his final exam. The past is a very insistent voice inside of Picard. Galen thinks Picard is maintaining a dull and bloated empire. Professor Galen visited an unexplored star system, Rua 4, and the conference on Atalia 7 has been scheduled for 6 months. Those are some very trivial trivioids. All right.
Yeah.
There's a lot to cover still here, Sirach. Before I give you my full opinion on this episode, I would love to know your full opinion of this episode. Did you love it?
I enjoyed the episode. I thought it moved pretty good. The pace was good for me. Some of the directing choices were good for me. I saw Jonathan Frakes kind of come in with some fast-paced movement camera-wise. He had a good shot of Picard on the bridge, sitting there with Troy in the foreground in the opening shot, and then he had a nice shot of Data at the panel while he was working in the opening shot. I just like some of the choices that Jonathan Frakes made for the camera. Thought the pace was good. I also but I thought it worked well for the story that Professor Galen passed away earlier on and kept the story moving. So it wasn't just a laborious back and forth between the two of them playing, you should have done this and I could have done that. They moved the story along quickly by having him kind of pass away relatively early on in the episode. So, I just thought it was great. I thought Picard showed a little bit of shortness with Troy in some moments when Troy tried to come up to him. He was like, he got really short with her.
Yeah, he said something like, I'm not going to let Professor Galen's death be in vain. And if that means, making a few of these dorks a little uncomfortable for a few days, that's fine.
That's what he said, something like that.
Yeah, but he said it with some oomph.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Where is it?
Yes, he did. And Troy was like, Captain.
He says, I will not let the Professor Galen's death be in vain. Now, if that means inconveniencing some squabbling delegates for a few days, then so be it. And we're like, damn, Picard, it's kind of hot when you talk like this. You talk like a jerk.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty good, though.
So I remember this episode from way back in the day. And I don't remember the first part, most of it. I just mostly remember the point, the scene, the end, right? The scene with the female changeling. Did you notice that was Salome Jens, by the way?
Yeah.
That's the female changeling. And then it just hit me this one time. I finally realized, it's like, wait a minute. She's basically played two characters that both spread their seed across the galaxy. Because what did the changelings do? They sent out all of the changelings like Odo for them to find their way back eventually. And this is a little different, but these guys also spread their seed throughout the galaxy. So I guess she just plays that kind of character. That's her thing.
Yeah. Actually, that's a very good point. It may actually be that the progenitors and the changelings are one and the same.
Well, that would be interesting. So, I remember this, and I remember the point, but I felt like it was boring because back then, I wanted to see lasers and stuff and aliens. And I was like, okay, it's kind of boring, but you remember the point of it. The Klingons, the Romulans, Cardassians, the humans are all in the same place and coming together, kind of. Um, but obviously, as seems to be the norm nowadays, when I watched it again as a more mature 25-year-old, I was like, huh, this is actually a pretty good episode. It's all right. It moves fine. It's not boring. You get some cool character moments, and yeah, it's pretty good. And of course, the theme and the idea and the point of the episode is a good one. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed it a lot more this time than previously.
This episode reminded me of a lot of things that I've seen in different ways on television shows and movies, and that is the famous the map to stolen treasure movies or whatever they are, where
Right.
there's the guy that has the map, and there's the other people that are looking for the treasure too, and everybody's one up in front of the other person and has the temporary upper hand whenever there is a moment for that. And it's just like one of those treasure hunt episodes for me as well, because all of a sudden you had the Eurydians, and then the Eurydians, and then there were the Cardassians, and then the Klingons, and then the Romulans showed up, and it was like, okay, this is they've done it, I'm sure, in westerns, or the buried treasure, and it's this guy's looking for it, and that guy's looking for it. I think the good, the bad, and the ugly. All of these episodes, all of these old movies, I felt like this was a sci-fi version of that. Like puzzle piece, who can put the clues together? They're trying to tell us something. This is like an Indiana Jones kind of hybrid.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I felt like this kind of touched on all of those notes for me in a science fiction way. Of course, at the end, they give us this progenitor character, but that's what I got from it throughout. So, in that way, it was entertaining because it was Star Trek's version of the treasure hunt, of the mystery. And this was not so much the murder mystery that we're used to seeing Picard kind of solving, Dixon Hill or whatever kind of murder mystery there is. This was more like treasure hunt mystery. And I liked it. I thought it was good.
So another group that played a role in this episode was the return of the Eurydians, one of my favorite aliens. Those are like the prune-faced guys. We saw them recently in the Worf episode, Birthright 1 and 2, with James Cromwell playing the Eurydian. Remember, I was saying they're information dealers. So this was probably the writers were like, oh, this is perfect for the Eurydians. We don't even have to see them. We just know they're information dealers. This is what they do. They work in information. And so that's what they were doing. They were going to take it from this guy and give it to the other guys. So that was really fun to see. And this, I didn't remember this, but this was, as far as I know, the only time we see a Eurydian destroyer. So I had to pause it and be like, ooh, what does a Eurydian destroyer looks like? Okay, it looks kind of destructive. That's cool. Because I never think of them as like warriors or, with warships. You always just see them kind of in a bar saying, I've got some information, So it's cool to see.
They remind me of Ferengi in the whole, black market mercantile, just trying to find the little sneaky deal to get away with. So I do feel Ferengi vibes when I get the Eurydians, But it's either Eurydian or Eurydi out.
Very nice. I don't get it. But no, that was very good. So also, there are a lot of cool little points in this episode. Like, oh my God. Did you see... Let me see if I can pull this up. Did you see? Maybe I'll save this for the free for all. But sometimes it's like, dude, you guys. I don't know if they're doing Troy dirty or what, but it happens. I'll save that for the free for all. But Mohamed,
good to you.
I did think of him when I was watching this episode. I remember thinking, man, it would be so cool if Mohamed was working on the show back then. He would have had so much fun being a science advisor and kind of being, like one of the faces of the science side of things. Would have been really fun because he's really got a great mind for it. But there was also a point where Crusher and Geordi and Data and Picard, they were all working together to figure something out. Data and Geordi were handling like, the technical things and the engineering type things, and Crusher was doing like science and medical, and they were all explaining it to Picard. And I'm like, this is what we love about Star Trek. A group of people that are really like masters in their field working together. And I was like, okay, who's left over? Worf, Riker, and Troy. And I was like, that's how the threesome started in Picard. The three of them were just left on the bridge, just bored, kind of bonding over talking jive about the other people. What are they doing? They're just, out there solving things, and we're just sitting here floating out, watching the bridge.
Yeah, and Troy said, "What do you use in your hair, anyways, Worf?"
Aquanet back then.
Yeah, that hair conversation turned. I like some of the dialogue in this episode. I want to give a shout out to Joe Menosky because we've seen Joe's name pop up a lot.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever met Joe Menosky. I don't think I've ever seen him before. But I want to give him his credit because Joe's been just a reoccurring name that pops up, and he gives us good episodes. He's always he's giving us good episodes. He doesn't come up, with just garbage. I found out that Joe Menosky is the reason why we have 47 in Star Trek. The whole
he's the originator.
47. Yeah,
cool.
Joe Menosky. He's the originator behind the lore of the number 47. Also, Ronald D. Moore was on the story by of this, which I think, you can see a little bit of his hand in this. I think ultimately just explaining the origins of why there's, humanoid bipeds all over the world. I think that's Ron Moore's contribution. And I want to talk about a little bit on the dialogue. There was a moment there that I thought Professor Galen gave some really good dialogue and delivery wise as well. And it was well written and well delivered. And one of them was when he went on to, talk about Picard acting like a Roman centurion out patrolling the provinces, maintaining a dull and bloated empire. And that was
pretty colorful.
It was colorful, well written. I thought it kind of can surmise if you have a pessimistic view of the Federation and its, bureaucracy and running this big governing body. I think that it can feel like a dull and bloated empire at some points. And then I also liked the way he emphasized to Picard when he said, "Don't make the same mistake twice." And that kind of really hit home for me because it let me know how much he was holding that as a resentment against Picard
for decades.
For decades, right? They wouldn't let it go, and it was like, "Don't do it again, bro. You messed up the first time. You already turned out to be a loser."
Yeah, there's a little resentment there.
Yeah. So, and then he called them a word that I had to look up because I didn't realize.
Me too. I know the word.
Okay.
I know the word.
Tell me about it.
What was it? Dilettante or something like that?
Yeah, dilettante or dilettante.
Dilettante. Yeah, I had to look that up too. I was like, I don't even know how to spell that to Google it, but I eventually did. And basically it's what you would expect. It was like a beginner of something. What is it? What was the word? It means a person who cultivates an area of interest such as the arts without real commitment or knowledge. I'm like, I did not know there's a word to describe that, but that describes a lot of people in LA. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I realized that too. I was like, I know a lot of dilettantes.
Yeah, we got to bring that word back.
Yeah, because they know everything about something, but they really don't. And so it's like they have an interest on something, but they don't have any real knowledge or a commitment to it. And it's
what they say is jack of all trades, master of none, basically.
Yeah. And I thought, wow, that's a very good word. So dilettante, adding that to the vocabulary, very well used. I thought it was a French word. I was like, this is a word.
It's got to be. It's got to be. It looks
Okay.
the way it's spelled. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. It's got to be dilettante. Be pronounced.
So yeah,
dilettante.
I was overall I enjoyed the episode. I thought the guy playing the Klingon was pretty interesting. That moment there, that scene he had with Data, where he's kind of bumping heads with him and challenged him to a double-handed.
Oh my god, that was such a fun scene, and it was so unnecessary. It had nothing to do with the story, but I was grateful that they just gave us this break. They're like, "Hey, we got 3 minutes to fill. Let's do a 3-page thing where the Klingon just goes and meets Data. Why? It'll be funny." And it was great. It was a nice little break. It was almost like that. There was your B plot.
That was the B plot.
A one scene B plot. I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, and I love the way Brent Spiner was playing it too. Like you're like I really trying to look on my phone or whatever he was looking at, and he's like, like you're like
you're attempting to bribe me. What?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
So good.
So I actually enjoyed that scene. It was hilarious to me, and the way how quickly he defeated him in that game where. He's like, ready, go. And he just smashed him out and then picked up his tablet again and started going back to work. Very fun. That moment was playful for me. I didn't get the whole Worf blew up the ship with a phaser fire. That they didn't even explain.
Right. It. That was something I did want to ask you too. I don't remember. You know what? I'll bet you Jason Oken on the other side is going to tell us they cut out the scene that explained it, because I thought the same thing. I was like, I don't remember seeing this when I watched this episode before. And so I was like, well, I'm sure they'll explain it later. No, they didn't.
No, that was it. They just moved on to the next thing. And I was like...
Because if Worf was surprised, he's like, oh, I only shot, Riker was pissed. Like, Mr. Worf, he's like, I barely touched him. So it's like, well, there's got to be a point to this.
So maybe there was a cloaked ship that blew them up, and that was omitted from
the Romulans. Maybe that, you're right. Maybe that was cut out, was the Romulans saying, hey, we were the guys that blew up that ship, actually. Or we were led to believe that must have been it. I bet you that's what it is. You're right. I bet you're right.
It had to be. But the fact that they didn't double back, I was sitting there waiting I was like, because Riker was pissed because people died on that thing, and he's got to be accountable. He's got to write a report. He's got to answer for this. You know what I mean? And so, and he didn't authorize that ship to be blown up. You know what I mean? So it was like Riker was legitimately pissed for a second. He's like, Worf, like what the hell? And he's like, phaser. Just a phaser.
I don't know. I swear, I barely touched him, dude.
I just touched the button like that. I didn't even push that hard.
Yeah, and then Riker, this was cut out, but Riker was saying, we're not doing our headbutting competition later. Then I'm pissed. I'm mad at you right now. Hey, we're almost out of time here. There's so much more on this episode, but we got to flip over to the other side, and we'll definitely talk about it more. So let's talk about, where'd that ball go? The home run of today's episode. Sirach Lofton, who cracked the bat the hardest and hit a home run in this episode?
Home run goes to Dr. Mohamed Noor. He's always the home run hitter for us. But no, I don't know. It's really, performance-wise, I don't feel like anyone really jumped out that much. It's hard to say for this episode. I'm going to just probably go out and just say Joe Menosky and Ron Moore for writing the episode. I think the writers get it. They gave us the progenitors. They gave us an idea that, tried to explain some of the inconsistencies in Star Trek. They tried to give us a moment of, hey, we're all come from the same origin, so let's kind of work together kind of mentality or optimism that came out of this episode. So overall, they used science fiction as a vehicle to kind of bring people together and let us know that we're more similar than we are different. So I like that, and so I'll give it to the writers.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you in that it's kind of a tough call because there wasn't really a major standout thing. I mean, it was a Picard episode, but they didn't give him like huge moments to really show off his acting chops. It was more like, pondering. And even when the guy died, he was just kind of like, okay. That's a bummer. That's kind of the dad that I never had, but I'm just gonna go figure something out. But I'm gonna lean a little bit into Jonathan Frakes as the director because I didn't know he directed it until right before we hit record. I looked it up so that I could say it at the top, and I was like, "Oh, that figures." A lot of times, a good director will make you not notice them. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't notice anything, then they did their job. Now, of course, if they do great things and they stand out, they also did their job even better. But when I saw Jonathan Frakes, I was like, that makes sense because he got a pretty dreary episode in that, dreary not in a bad sense, but just that there's not a lot happens. It's informational. It's interesting, but there's not a lot of action. There's not a lot of ways for him to show off his directing. So he didn't try to show off too hard. He didn't try to do, pop a wheelie or do crazy spinning shots where, to try to soup it up and make us go, wow, this episode's exciting. He just directed this particular episode well without trying to add too many bells and whistles. And so it just didn't notice him. And that's what this episode needed. So he gets the home run of the episode for me. And here's some other people that I never noticed. Just kidding. No, they're our best pals. And their names are Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Muller, Dr. Mohamed Noor, what a guy, Anil O. Palat, Joe Bow, Surati Mike Goo, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manasfi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Chris Sternett, Greg K. Wickstrom, Cassandra G., Chuck A., Chris Garris, Linda Page, and the aforementioned, of course, Mr. Jason M. Oken. Stick around, everybody. We will be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton. This is the free-for-all with Melissa Longo. Woo! Hi. And Jason M. Oken, who says, impress me.
Exactly.
Allison Leach Hyde wearing an awesome shirt from our good friend Sabrina Wood. Chuck A's got a family shirt. That's the Cisco family. Susan V. Gruner is hanging out in Florida. Cool shirt color. Mark Zutkoff has three. It's the Abyssinian kiosk. The Cisco kid, right? Mark Zutkoff has his 3 cool pictures with him, as always. Faith Howell is on the bridge of the Enterprise D, as is TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri. Chris Garris has 2 old dudes behind him. Carrie Schwent looks like she got one of those magic eye things behind her. The Dark Lord Chris McGee has Darmok and Jalad on his shirt, and the Matt Boardman is ready for action. Oh, he's got a family shirt too. Ferengi?
Yes, indeed.
Yep, Ferengi family. All right. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
I think this one might be right around a 7-1. Yeah.
Sue's pissed or surprised. Does anybody else have any guesses that doesn't already know?
8.0.
I'll say
I'll guess
7.5.
I'll guess 7.6.
7.2.
7.3.
All right. All bets are in. That sound you just heard tells you somebody got it right on the dot.
Ding, ding,
Ding, ding, ding, ding.
He's got a
He
family
did.
shirt on, and it is the Cisco family. It is Chuck A. Congratulations, Chuck A. You win.
Wow.
Applause. All right.
What's it, a 7.3?
8.0, right?
8.0.
8.0.
8.0.
I know.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was surprisingly high.
Wow.
Whoa. We still haven't talked about it, have we?
My
8.0.
I know. I was surprised when I saw that. So Non-appearance mentions. I got one for Picard's dad. Right, we've seen Picard's dad, so that's one non-appearance mention. Was there any others?
I got one for the Protostar.
Well, they said Protostar twice.
All right.
Who knows?
I
That
don't
might
know
have been
about
the
that.
Protostar.
Whoa, I was
That
like,
might have
wait
been
a
the star
second
that was
here.
on the ship.
If I didn't get to keep whatever I said last time, Protostar doesn't count.
No,
Yeah.
Uh-oh,
Yeah,
wow.
Melissa
listen.
is the
Sounds
jury.
like we got a hater in the house.
It sounds like we got two.
No, but it
No hate.
technically
I got
doesn't
rules.
count.
Yeah, they weren't talking about the ship Protostar. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
They just
yeah,
said the
but
word.
even unless you're gonna give residuals to Bonnie, because I guess
She
she's the
wouldn't
voice
mind.
of the ship.
But I guess did they
Then-
mean
then it
the
would count.
ship itself, or did they mean an actual protostar? Is the question.
It was an
yeah,
actual
they meant an actual
protostar
Protostar.
Maybe. Well, we'll think about it.
But how do we know
because
that
they were
that's not
studying star clusters.
We'll take it under advisement.
Yeah, this is going to be one for the ages here. What about some kind of, or so nerdy, some kind of, or some sort
Here
of
we go.
Chris McGee?
No.
Oh,
Oh,
nice
we
homework.
got
Yes.
we definitely got several. Four I caught. this time.
4.
Yeah.
wow.
3.
We got LaForge saying we tried every decryption key on record in case Professor Galen was using some kind of code. And then we got Picard saying, I thought if I stared at these number blocks long enough that I would begin to see some kind of pattern.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, Worf then shortly later says, some kind of plasma reaction is consuming the lower atmosphere. And finally, we get Picard again saying, are you saying that these DNA fragments are elements in some kind of computer program?
Wow, 4, big time. Thank you very much, Dark Lord, for bringing light to this subject. All right, Melissa Longo, please get us started off on the right track. Stop playing Words with Friends. What do you think of this episode?
Does anyone play that still?
No.
No. I like the idea of this episode. I like the premise of this episode. I've always enjoyed puzzles. I like puzzles. And this episode was definitely a puzzle. I always like when we get character development from Picard or any of the crew. I also really like when they explore Picard and Crusher's working relationship. I think they work really well together. They ping off of each other pretty well as far as exploring stuff. Then so I like that idea. I feel like watching this episode, I feel that I understand Discovery's final season a bit more.
Right.
Although now it kind of feels like a ripoff of this. I'm sorry, but it feels like Discovery just ripped off this episode. But I really like the premise of everyone being connected, because I do think that we're all connected, not just humanoids, but on this planet, every species is connected in some way. And there's varying things, even through our differences, that bring us together and make us basically a family that exists on this planet. From the smallest amoeba to, the biggest blue whale, we're all connected in some way. And I love that. My biggest complaint is that the ending felt rushed to me. There wasn't nearly enough emphasis on, or importance, I feel like, on this information that was being provided to them that they had just been discovered. So I think they could have maybe shifted some things around a bit more. But overall, I didn't hate the episode.
High praise. All right. Thank you very much, Melissa Francesca Longo. All right, Jason M. Oken, did you also not hate the episode?
That's about right. Do I like the episode? At some level. Do I love it? No, I do not. And, the fact that, Melissa, you mentioned Discovery picked up on this particular show to expand into a whole season. I questioned that from the very beginning, saying, is there enough here? And certainly the story itself lacks scope. Obviously can't do this in 42 minutes. So there's a lack of scope and certainly a rushed ending. But this Star Trekian theme is that we're all more alike than we're different. Certainly shines through. And frankly, this is something I think that Discovery missed quite a bit. I don't know if they even understood what this episode was about. I wish Next Gen had the budget and the ability to actually do something that Discovery did and actually take the story and expand it. Because I think the underlying theme that certainly can get lost at the very end simply because of it got resolved in half an act is not the best way to put it forward. I do like the beginning of the episode. I like Patrick's performance. Having Norman Lloyd here was tremendous. I mean, he's a wonderful actor and with one of the longest resumes. Who's done movies in the 40s and whatnot. I mean, it's amazing they were able to get him to do the show. So that's terrific. I must say I did not enjoy John Cothran's performance. I think he was a little over the top, and that made the Klingon. It brought the performances down a notch a little bit. I think sometimes when you have Klingon actors, trying to act through the makeup, sometimes it goes a little overboard. I think, Frakes did an admirable job with what he had. Being stuck on planet Hell isn't exactly the greatest thing in the world. And it was nice to see Salome Johnson, her first Star Trek role. I guess, the makeup is kind of similar, even the outfit. So that was kind of interesting that they kept putting her in the same kind of clothes. Overall, there's certainly a lot more to say. It's a decent episode toward the end of a season. Is it a standout? No. And again, being sort of a basis of a whole season of Discovery isn't exactly a highlight in my book.
Also, high praise. Thank you very much, Jason M. Oken. Great stuff as always. Allison Leach Hyde is here. She told me earlier this is a top 70 episode. What do you think?
That's probably fair. I think it is a good middle of the road episode. So yeah, that's, we're kind of like in the middle there. What I really like about this episode is that everyone has something to do. Beverly's doing something, Geordi's doing something, Data's doing something. Troy is wanting to take a walk with the captain, but she's there and she has lines. So yay, more lines for Troy. And I do think that Frakes did a great job, directing this when he couldn't go take them all to Assault Flats because that was probably out of the budget at the time to all go to Utah. Could have been fun. So I do like that. At one point while watching, I did go Romulans, Cardassians, and Klingons. Oh my! We had them all. I also really enjoyed the idea of we got all of our classic Next Generation villains all together with us humanoids or us Earthlings to discover that we're not that different from each other. I feel it is very, very much what Roddenberry was wanting to do with the original Star Trek. So I do feel this is a really Star Trek episode of Next Generation. And so that I really like. I love it when Picard and Beverly go on adventures and work through puzzles together. They do it really, really well. And I enjoy watching their relationship. And especially at the end when Beverly is very, very comfortable. She got her jacket over a chair. She's lounging on the couch like, no. We are good friends, not just coworkers. So I thought it was nice to see that bit of that relationship. One thing when this episode started while I was watching today, I'm like, I don't remember this episode. Why don't I remember this episode? And it's because I didn't get to see it as a kid because they did not show it in North Dakota. And I'm sure you can figure out why if you stop and think about it.
Yeah.
Because I come from a very Christian state. And so I think this one wasn't shown during the day when kids would be home. So I'm like, oh, yeah, this is about, it doesn't follow a good chunk of what Christianity believes. And so I think that's why it wasn't on TV for me. So I didn't see it till I was an adult. So I don't have like this visceral memory of watching this as a kid, as I do with so many other episodes. So that occurred to me on this watch this time.
Wow. That's nuts. Thank you very much, Allison Leach Hyde. Chuck A. You do like this episode, though. What'd you think of it?
Yeah, yeah, I really like the episode. I mean, it's not the best of the season, but it is a very good episode. Let me cut to the chase on this review.
Nice.
I love seeing Salome Jens, and like was mentioned that she looked like the female shapeshifter, the way she was dressed and the makeup. The actor, as Jason mentioned, Norman Lloyd, he was an iconic actor that was in just about everything. He passed away in 2021 at 106.
Whoa!
So he was around a long time. I love the actor that played the female Cardassian, especially the line where she says, "Well, I count 2 of our ships and 1 of yours. Perhaps I miscounted." I love that line. The actor that played the Klingon, as also I think Jason mentioned that he was over the top. I did like the scene with Data, in 10 Forward though. The end of the episode was really quickly put together, I think, but the message was, that they're not. Everybody is from the same pool there, and everybody's are related to a degree. I think they mentioned it was 19 planets. I think they said that the seeds were planted, but it does make sense to a degree that if there is other life, which I believe there is, in other worlds, that they could be the same look as we are with from the same gene pool, I guess you'd call it. But this episode was, like I said, I liked the episode. It wasn't the best of the season, but it was very watchable, and I enjoyed seeing it again.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Chuck A., a.k.a. TNG Fanatic. Dr. Susan V. Gruner is up next. What is up, Doctor? What do you think of this one?
Well, I am confused. I don't really know what to say. I'm just going to tell you that I had more questions, and I too had forgotten about this episode. First of all, what was the doctor's name that gave that thing to Picard? That's an ancient relic. It should be in a museum. I feel like that's a quote from like an Indiana Jones movie or something, but I felt that piece, well, you can't give that away to somebody for a present. It's ridiculous. The founders, they're bad people. Why would we trust, now that we know what we know based on Deep Space Nine, I guess thanks to this episode, why would anybody think the founders would be up to anything good? They're evil. What I liked was, I have to comment on fashion because that's me. I love Deanna's uniform. I like the blue piping around her neck. I didn't like that nobody was too upset that people died, like on the entire ship that got blown up, and Dr. Galen dies, and Picard just looks like not even sad. It's like it's one of his best buddies. Oh, I really like that they had a female Cardassian as a gull. Is that the first time we've seen that? I just don't remember it on Deep Space Nine.
And the only one.
And of course, I liked how Data responded to the overacting Klingon still. I laughed. But, I didn't hate this episode. I think if it entertains, that's important. But I think they dropped the ball on what was a really good idea with the DNA and all of that. They could have followed up on that, and not having watched Discovery, spoiler alert, I don't know how it ended. So if they stole something from this episode, I would not know. Don't hate me, no flames.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Susan V. Gruner. No flames, no hate for you. But Mark Zutkoff, no promises. What do you got on this one? What do you think of this one?
This is a fun one. It squeaks into my top 25 TNG episodes.
Wow.
It represents an evolution in Jonathan Frakes' directing. Good from his first effort, he manages to swing from mysterious to comedic while maintaining the standard types of camera angles and lighting that the Next Generation used frequently. The moody nature of the observation lounge with the lights down and shadowy figures is a prominent example. The Kurlan Neskos is a cool prop, and it propels us into the story, which highlights Picard's love for archaeology. This part of his character has undergone adjustments over the years. In Season 1's The Battle, he says, "Let the past remain the past." But in Season 2, when riding in the shuttle, he tells Wesley Crusher, "Open your mind to the past." And in Season 3's Captain Holiday, he's almost Indiana Jones. And here in Season 6, he quotes a phrase, "Dream not of today," and his own past, turning away from archaeology for a career in Starfleet, becomes a major plot point. I like the amount of screen time that both Troy and Crusher got. Troy does her counseling job, but gets her back up when Picard rebuffs her regarding the upcoming conference. Crusher encourages Picard and even comes up with the idea of DNA, but she's also in full ship's doctor mode. She has a funny deleted scene, which is on the Blu-ray, which follows up on the idea of 17 individuals on board the Enterprise who are not Federation members taking a sample from Mr. Mott. Great guest stars in this episode. We've already mentioned Norman Lloyd and Salome Jens. Linda Thorson, whom you might remember from the British TV spy show The Avengers as Tara King, is wonderfully snarky and sarcastic as Gul Osset. So much foreshadowing in this episode to ideas that appear in later Star Trek series, DS9 with the Founders, the Picard series about his family, and of course, even Discovery Season 5. I try not to step on Chris McGee's quotation database, but I got such a kick out of the Klingon captain's line after the message plays, "If she were not dead, I would kill her." And my home fun of the episode, several species were sent on a merry chase only to be chastened by the outcome.
That killed. Thank you very much, Mark Zutkoff. Excellent work. All right, Faith Howell is here on the bridge of the Enterprise D. What do you got for us? You love it?
I do love it. I honestly, though, watching it today, and admittedly, maybe I was distracted by the kids carrying on, but it wasn't the compelling drama that I remember watching it as a child. I know, right? I was ready for it, and I was a little bit let down. I mean, the final scene with the progenitor still hits. But I didn't remember much, maybe for similar reasons to Allison's, but I didn't remember much of the early scenes. I remember, the older gentleman being there and that there was some relationship there, but I didn't remember all the details. And then watching it now, I kind of felt like I really appreciated that the way Picard described him as the father, that I connected with, and that he felt the same about me. I kind of loved the idea that he had that kind of relationship. But did they have to have the same hair? I mean, that was a little too on the nose for me.
Or lack thereof.
And then, but I also didn't remember the Cardassian Gull, female Gull, and that opens up a whole new realm of canon costuming for me that I had forgotten about, because I've always wanted to do that particular costume, but I always thought I needed, a gentleman cosplayer to go along with me. And no, I do not. So you guys look out at a convention coming soon.
Awesome.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you very much, Gull Faith Howell. All right. TJ Jackson Bay is out in Missouri. He reminds you to be kind. What do you think of this one?
Well, first of all, I'm afraid of being interrogated by Gold Howell. Also, for all of you people that are hating on this episode and all the stuff that came from it, I'm going to have to tell you to Mev Yap. Cut it out. Wow, what an audience!
We got it. You were quoting
They
the
really did
episode,
get
right?
me. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, I remember this episode fondly, and I do remember it all. And I think I had it recorded on the VCR, so I didn't have to wait for them to play it back on the TV, which was good for me and not so good for you guys who didn't get to see it. But I appreciated the themes of this episode, and I thought it tied together really well. There's a little bit of metaphysics in here with the kind of the thought of that Picard expressed when he looked at the figurines and said, you know, those people believe that there were many people inside one person. And you know, I tend to believe that there are like many aspects of self, not necessarily, you know, multiple people or multiple personalities, but you know, there are parts of ourselves that we call upon in tough times. There are part of ourselves that we may recognize could use some healings, and there are others that shine through in moments of greatness, and they all form, you know, like a part of our whole self. So I appreciated that kind of analogy. I think it takes a lot of self honesty to call forth our better parts, and more so, a lot more self honesty to work on the parts of ourselves that need it. I also really kind of got my heartstrings tugged at when Professor Galen died, because his last words as he looked at Picard were, "I was too harsh." And you know, that hit me, because I know that a lot of people, you know, go to their grave with this kind of regrets of how they interacted with the people in their lives, and I just really think that it's painful. It's sad that it happens that way, but that also encourages me and enthuses me to try to have the relationships that I want to have with people now, so that I don't have those regrets on my deathbed. As far as it depends upon me, I can't control the other person. It's like, you know, there were things that Galen couldn't control. He can't control that he couldn't finish his research, but he did have control over how he interacted with Picard, his former student. And he ended up regretting the way that ended. I thought that was sad, and I thought it was well played, although there wasn't a lot of attention on it, as was previously mentioned. I also appreciated the idea that the progenitor expressed of keeping memory alive and honoring what came before us, which I thought was part of the message, as important as, you know, you all have, you know, some of us in you and some of each other and all of that stuff. I think the memory of ancestors is important to carry on, to remember where we came from, what sacrifices and what journeys had to be take for us to be here today to talk about this. And lastly, you know, back full circle to the Carolyn Neskos with the many parts and individuals inside the whole self. I think that's a great analogy also for what the progenitor put forth, as in all of you collectively are our progeny. And so, yes, you know, there are different individual races and you came from different places and you have different characteristics, just like we have different aspects of self. But in the end, you're all part of the greater whole. And I think somebody mentioned that that's definitely true for all the species on Earth. So a lot of good stuff to contemplate here, I think. So I really appreciate this episode. Little side note, as far as many people inside oneself, I think the writers must really like that idea, because it's not the first time that they've given it to us. I remember a scene with Alexander Rozhenko and Roxana Troy, where they were having a conversation about bringing out one of the little people inside you when you need it. So I thought that was an interesting connection to uh, episode or a line that can easily be forgotten. That's all I got.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri. All right, Chris Garris, what is up with you, and what do you think of this one?
No, so I have actually always liked this episode because I like that. I love the Indiana Jones movies, so this fed right into that. They're doing the search for the artifact, and the mysteries and everything, and of course they're being chased by the big, kind of some bad people. So that part of it, I just has always engaged me. Now, obviously, now watching it, I've looked at it with a little different eye. I didn't really pick up the respect that Picard had for Professor Galen. Like when he, first sees him, he's like, oh my, he's a captain, but he's like, oh no, you can call me Mr. Picard still. He just, it's, I don't want to say he bows down, but he just respects him so much because, like as we've said, it was like another father to him. And so I get it, but yeah, I didn't really pick up on that. And then Picard, he was like a kid on Christmas when he saw that statue on the desk in the in the observation lounge. It was like, oh my God, is that, he was almost speechless. And so it was just, he was living this dream that he did not pursue, which, kind of then leads me to, trying to say once, I'll say this here and I've got more later, but, I really did feel like that Professor Galen, obviously he makes up for it at the end, but still completely overreacted. I mean, he's just walks out and he's like, fine, Mr. Picard, that was kind of childish. But because he turned him out again. But aside from that, he does realize that he was too harsh on him. But then again, later on, Picard turns around when Troy's trying to, speak some reason into him and like, well, Captain, we need to go do this. He's like, I don't care about some squibbling dignitaries or whatever. They'll be there. I am going to finish this mission. So that's what I like. He was so focused on this mission that he was going to, even though he could not go and live that dream of being an archaeologist, he was going to do it for his professor to make up for one, breaking his heart again and having to let him down. And so he was going to do it, and damn them, he didn't care. He was going to do it. And I wonder if, and some of y'all may or may not know, but if, this episode led them to the decision to make the founders in DS9. I don't really know that, but it sure does have a lot to it. But overall, it's a good episode. I have no hate for this one. I've always enjoyed it. And I was going to make sure I made this review today because I really wanted to hear everybody talk about this one. Even after being on my computer for multiple hours already today, I was going to make it.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Chris Garris. Same actress that played the progenitor and one of the founders. So there's that link there, not a broken link. Carrie Schwent, a.k.a.
Found the right one for it.
What do you think of this
what
one?
you did there.
Carrie Schwent, what do you think?
It's an okay episode. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's kind of one of those I don't mind. Like you can have on in the background and look up from time to time. My favorite part was definitely John Cothran, who played the Klingon guy. He was delightful. I enjoyed every scene he was in, and the Cardassian woman talking about that it might end up being a recipe for biscuits, and he's like, "You'll go home. I'll send you my mom's recipe." Just had me howling. Yeah, the scene in 10 Forward is just laugh out loud hysterical from beginning to end. And he ends with going, "Dude, that was fun. Let's do it again." So he absolutely would have done it again sometime, knowing he was gonna potentially knock himself unconscious. He absolutely would have done it again. When I was looking up all the different actors, I definitely went down a little bit of an IMDb rabbit hole with Norman Lloyd when I found out
I'm shocked.
how old he was, and yeah, there were so many bits on the trivia page on his IMDb. It was a blast. But the thing that I loved the most was he was married to his wife for 75 years. They met in 1927. She passed a couple months after their 75th anniversary. She was in her mid 90s when she passed, so they had a really good long life together. Apparently, he also loved baseball because one of the IMDb bits mentions that he saw Babe Ruth at the age of 11 in the World Series, and apparently he also was at like he was like 103. He was at the one of the World Series games in 2017 also. So clearly he loved baseball his entire life, getting to see World Series games. I'm sure he went to several others, during the course of his life. But yeah, this dude was fantastic. Saying elsewhere, but I was kind of aware of its existence, but I was a little too young to watch it. And by the time I was old enough, streaming services weren't a thing yet, so I've never gone back to try to watch it. But I also loved the artifact. Picard's face. Yeah, loved it. He opened it up, and all the little guys inside. And by the way, that's what's behind me. I made a little sticker, like digital sticker on my phone, and then just copy and pasted it over and over and over behind me. So it's kind of like an extreme close up of the inside with all the little guys. Because I love miniature. I get like Picard with archaeology stuff. I get giggly over miniatures of things. So like a miniature version of stuff. I love that kind of thing, like Lego minifigures. I love that stuff. And it also did remind TJ. It also did remind me of the Waxana and Alexander conversation. I remembered it immediately. I loved it then. I'm always talking about all the voices that are in my head, and I probably said as much in that free for all. But I found a T-shirt once that I bought for Eric, my husband, that says, "I do what the voices of my wife said tell me to." So yeah, yeah,
smart.
I love all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's we all have, but there's a whole bunch of people up in everybody's head. So some of them are louder than others. I definitely agree with Picard's assessment of the theory behind the artifact. But for the limerick, it was definitely inspired by the Klingon guy and his "that's it" kind of comment. So I came at the limerick from that point of view. So I'll finish with that. It seems like we all come from the same place. All our genes started with this one race. This chase has all been for naught. No reward for battles fought. Now we'll go back to our own corners of space.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Carrie Schwent. That is mind-blowing about watching Babe Ruth in the World Series. That dude has seen some stuff. All right. Chris McGee, what's up? What do you think of this one?
I greatly enjoyed this one because it finally takes one of Star Trek fandom's biggest nitpicks and gives it a perfectly reasonable, scientific, and in-universe explanation. But more than that, it wraps it up in a mystery, which leads to a quadrant-spanning adventure. I'd like, Jason, I just wish it was more than just one episode because it does feel like it was rushed at the end. Oh, and the explanation we get to explain that most species across the galaxy are a humanoid in form is, in my opinion, and I'm sure I'll get some hate mail for this, a far better explanation than the one we get for the difference in Klingon appearances in Star Trek Enterprise. Feel free to at me in the comments below. Please. We get a nice shot of Lieutenant J in the very first scene of the episode entering left of frame here. As everyone has already said, it's great to see Salome Jens. And this won't be the last time that we see the Kurlan Naskos, the artifact that Professor Galen gifts to Picard at the beginning of the episode. It's not really a spoiler, just something to maybe watch out for in a possible future review here. I'll point it out when and if we get to it. And speaking of that artifact, I love Patrick Stewart's performance as he is examining it. Like Chris Garris said, he conveys awe, gratitude, incredulity, and reverence. He really convinces the audience that this artifact that was probably just put together by the props department, I don't know, is something incredibly special and unique. I mean, the only way it could have been more convincing is if he had put on gloves before touching it. I do also appreciate some of Stewart's nonverbal acting, such as during a silent moment on the observation lounge when he's clearly thinking about investigating Galen's tasks further, and then later in his ready room when he stands up and stretches, something we all do but almost never see on Star Trek. I don't know if they were scripted that way, but regardless, I thought, the little slices of reality like that were a nice touch. And of course, the overall message of the episode, which is true to Roddenberry's vision, racism is absolutely stupid, etc., taking the microcosm of all of us humans on this planet ultimately being the same and projecting it to a galactic scale. And of course, Picard's very prophetic last line of the episode that the message fell on deaf ears, I think hits even harder today. For the memorable quote of the episode, it's a bit unusual. It's just 2 words, and it's memorable to me just because Professor Galen repeats it so often in the episode, and that is simply Mr. Picard.
Yes, thank you very much, Dark Lord. Chris McGee. All right, the Matt Boardman. What's up with you, the Matt? Did you love it?
This is one of those episodes going into it. I was like, I feel like this is one that I skip, and I don't know why, because it's not a bad episode. It really isn't. I think what it is that the ending kind of falls a little flat for me, because as has been pointed out, it's a little rushed. I think that in a lot of ways this episode could have been 2 parts. But I also think that, like a lot of Next Generation 2-parters up to this point, the first part of the story is always the more exciting, and it's like they don't quite stick the landing, and I think that's kind of the case with this. I love the beginning when we get the professor who comes in, and we get to understand that Picard had this father figure in his life that meant a lot to him. But what I didn't like was that he came in and in some ways disrespected the fact that Picard has made a name for himself. He has done quite well for himself. And so to demean that in favor of, well, this is what I want you to do with your life, never mind this nonsense that, oh, what are you doing? You're surveying around the galaxy, or whatever. That, I don't know. That kind of, maybe that struck a little too close to home for me. I don't know, maybe. But I do like that part of it, and I do have some what ifs they could have done with this episode, and I'll save that for things that left unsaid. But yeah, I don't know. I don't dislike it, but I don't, it's not an episode that I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what? Salome Jens, total my cosplay at STLV next year.
Nice.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, thanks very much.
Boots.
The Matt Boardman. Well, that was a close one. We're gonna look forward to that. I got sweat for a second. All right. We're going to have things left unsaid up next, everybody, because we all have way more things to say and a couple things
Jake's
we probably
final
shouldn't
take.
have said. And I'm so sorry. Thank you, Chris McGee, for saving us. Jake's final take.
When you say boobs, Brian gets all flustered.
my brain went
That's what
like
he thought he heard.
haywire.
You guys really hit on a lot of the points. I did like to see the high-ranking Cardassian woman as the goal. I thought that was a nice thing to see. Would have liked to see more follow up on that in the subsequent episodes. I heard a mention of Deep Space 4, and they were 5 away. So we're getting close. This professor told Picard that he needs to go with him for like 3 months to a year to do this science thing. And Picard figured it out in about 15 minutes on my screen. So what was the 3 months for a year going to be? Like, they just had to go to that planet and get the last sample. I didn't get that part, and I also, if this guy was like such a great scientist doing all this, like the only guy in the world doing this research, then how does everybody in the world know about it too? How does the Romulans, the Klingons, the Uridia, everybody knows about this one scientist conducting like a very niche study and subject that I just didn't get enough of explanation on that. And I wish that this professor approached Picard with the kind of intellectual respect that he deserves. And that would have been more convincing for me if he had said, hey, I know you had a desire to do this, that, and the third, and here's your chance. It'll just be a week, and we can do this excursion. And he could have played to, he could have appealed to the desire Picard had inside of him to just want to be an archaeologist and live out that fantasy for a little bit. I thought he approached it wrong. By belittling him and talking down to him on his own ship, that's not going to win any favor. That's not going to, gain his respect or make him or be convincing. So that wasn't clever at all. I heard something about an unlimited power source, and that, of course, just kind of like they kind of threw things out there they never followed up on, like the phaser blast blowing up that ship.
Yeah.
They never followed up on that. They talked about unlimited power. This thing would be an unlimited power source. There was no explanations on how any of this stuff was going to be, like how they got to this. I'm with Susan on this one about having an archaeological find of that magnitude, an intact piece of relic that's 12,000 years old. It survived all of the wars and all of the tragedies and whatever happened to civilizations over that time. And now they're going to put it on a ship that goes through battles and blows up and explosions every week. Like, that's something you should put in a museum and let be preserved behind the proper glass or whatever you protect it with.
He probably stole it.
Yeah, it doesned belong to him to give away. Right. I don't think. I think that's something that belongs to either the people who crafted it, their society, or for the greater good of on display, so that all of humanity can observe it and enjoy it. It doesn't belong in somebody's private collection, and there's a lot of things in people's private collection that should be enjoyed by all of us, so we can be learning from it and benefit from it. But nonetheless, I thought the episode had great tempo, and that's why I feel like Jonathan Frakes took the script and gave us a good tempo. There wasn't much of a story here, but the fact that the professor dies in the first act gets us rolling on to the next thing. And I thought tempo wise, the episode flowed pretty well for me. Yeah, and those are my big takeaways. Overall, though, I did think that the episode was trying to make a point that the We Are the World kind of all get along point, and it did a satisfactory job of that for me.
Satisfactory. High praise, everybody. All right, now we'll have a lot more to discuss on things left unsaid, including something Sirach mentioned. And I immediately looked over at Jason M. Oken, who bristled for a second because we predicted Jason would have the answer to this one. We'll find out on things left unsaid if he does. Also, Allison is a candidate for knowing the answer to that one. All right. Thank you very much to the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Carrie Schwent, Chris Garris, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Faith Howell, Mark Zutkoff, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Chuck A., Allison Leach Hyde, Jason M. Oken, Melissa Longo, for myself, Sirach, Melissa. Melissa made a face. I thought I said something wrong. And of course, Aaron Eisenberg. Thank you all very much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. And we hope to see you next time. And until then, always remember the 7th rule. Everybody make a face like Melissa did.